Hey everybody, and welcome back to Sound Money Matters live from Savannah, Georgia. I'm actually taking a intermediate grading course to learn how to grade coins better. And today we have a great episode for you. We're going to be talking about the great Bullion shift, the COMEX tension, what's going on with Asia, and just everything. What's going on geopolitically with gold and silver. And help me out with that analysis. We have the one and only Rob Kientz. What's up, Rob? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, Daniel. Thanks for having me back on the program.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, it's been a crazy year. It's been a crazy month and a half. I mean, January we just saw silver ripping, gold ripping, and then we had that pullback. You knew what was going on, and everybody was trying to figure out what happened. And now, things have kind of settled down. It's increasing. The pace of gold and silver is going up roughly about the pace we're used to, right? In the sense where it's not parabolic, it's kind of just steady. So, what are you seeing right now in the markets? And I got a couple articles that we can get into, but what's your overall perspective?
My overall perspective is we've seen in silver inventories on the COMEX a rundown from a high of 200 million ounces to about 86, 87 million ounces of what we call liquid silver. And that is silver in the registered category, which on the exchange means that's the silver that can be used for deliveries. So if somebody has a long derivative contract position and they want one of the shorts to deliver silver against that position, they can do what's called stand for delivery, which is they notify the short that, hey, I want to actually get the silver for this. I don't want just cash settlement, or I don't want to roll this position. And if them and the short, the long and the short can come into agreement, the silver gets taken off. And by taken off, I mean it's just transferred ownership. Most of it typically stays in these depositories that are COMEX approved. And they're private depositories. They're not COMEX owned. So until the next person who then has that silver decides they want to put it up for potential delivery, maybe they don't need it anymore, or they just want to get rid of it. So that's kind of how the cycle continues. So it goes from an eligible, which is really private ownership, to registered, which is liquid. Okay. So with that explanation out of place, we almost 60% of available silver has come off in like the last month and a half too, since the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And that's led people to say, okay, maybe in March, it's kind of a little bit of a bigger delivery month for silver. Does it mean we're going to run out? I mean, there are still lots of contracts open on silver there. Will everybody stand for delivery? Will we run out? Now, in this analysis, we've been lower on silver in 2021, 2022, and 2023 than we were now. And during the original silver squeeze in 2021, we went from 150 million ounces to 30 million ounces. So 120 came off, most of it, but we didn't default. And London, when they had the big run also in SLV in 2021, SLV stores most of their silver in London at the time, that they were running out of free float silver too. So what happened was between 2021 and 2023, silver flew back and forth between the UK and the US to try to keep these depositories flush with free silver, because that was reported in the financial media, like Reuters and CNBC and those places. They're flying silver around, but we didn't run out. Well, this time it's now come to people's attention. We have problems with Shanghai silver. Now, Shanghai is a much smaller market. It's about 1/15 of the notional volume of COMEX, right? But it still is a heavy delivery market, and they're running low. So it seems as though we're starting to get in this really low condition in silver on these exchanges. And the thought on social media is, well, they could run out March. I personally don't think they'll run out in March. Neither does David Morgan. But I think we're getting a lot closer to the point at which we're in like what I would call like an existential crisis, where you look around the world and it just isn't enough silver for demand. We're much closer to that than we were in 2021. I don't know if that happens in March. I personally think there's enough silver there, but we're going to see. And the reason I say that is because you can't force delivery in COMEX. I mean, the exchange can guarantee some pricing, and they can help you facilitate and negotiate the contracts, but you can't force somebody to deliver. Now, whether or not the short, says I'm not going to deliver, and how the COMEX handles that short, and whether or not they're allowed to trade and that type of thing, that's between the exchange and the participant.
Yeah.
But we've seen it before where people stood for delivery and they didn't get the silver. Was it because it wasn't there? because they got talked out of it, because they got a little cash in the deal. I don't know. But so I personally don't think it happens this month, but man, if it did, that would explode the internet and the precious metals community for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. And to your point, I was doing some research before the show, and I found this article. It's on the livemint.com. Silver inventory on COMEX falls below 90 million ounces, which you mentioned. What does this mean for investors? And the snippet that I got out of this article is a little further down here, where Amir Makda basically said that the registered stock exceeds the amount of physical availability by 400%, meaning that there are more paper claims than there is physical by over 400%. And that's what's contributing to the volatility and the raising of the margin requirements. And overall, the article talks about how what this means is that there's obviously seems to be a shortage, a squeeze, but that it's in the short term, because of the volatility, and this is going to cause larger spreads between the bid and the ask. It's going to open up opportunities for people to jump in because they're expecting short-term pullbacks. But in the article, he basically says that the long-term outlook for silver is bullish. It's on the long side. And the same thing with this article. This article kind of just taps into what's going on with Iran, the Supreme Court case, and how there's uncertainty in the markets, and that there's a lot of volatility with Shanghai opening up after being closed for a week. It actually went down versus going up like everybody expected. But they said that's only going to be short term. There's going to be an opportunity for people to actually get in on some pullbacks. But everybody's basically saying, yeah, there's some pullbacks, there's some shortages. That's just going to create wider spreads. It's going to create volatility, but that volatility is an opportunity that these analysts are saying, an opportunity to jump in at a lower price, because everybody's expecting silver to increase because of these shortages. What do you think about what these articles and these guys are saying?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think volatility does increase the opportunity for traders to make money. In fact, volatility is how you make money, because if the price never goes anywhere and you're long or short and it doesn't go anywhere, you have no joy, you have no fun, right? So if you're trading anything from currencies to stocks to precious metals, to whatever, you want to be able to get in low, buy high. I'm sorry, get in, buy low, sell high, and do that, rinse and repeat, and do that over and over. Or maybe take a shorting strategy and say, I think the price is going to go down, I'm going to short it. And you borrow, shares or borrow whatever to do that from the market. That's true in every market, but the volatility is what makes the markets, what makes the money. And that's why, a lot of the financial media, I used to write for Seeking Alpha. And what Seeking Alpha means is you're searching alpha, which means outsized returns. And a lot of the people on Seeking Alpha that write for that website's got a ton of information on all the markets. Is the alpha is you're looking for volatility. That's what alpha essentially is. You're looking for an outsized potential for return. So if you put it in precious metals terms, I bought silver 4 years ago for $21. Now I can sell it for 85, maybe in January, 121. That's price volatility. That gives you ability to make money. And I would say, even if you're a dealer, you need price volatility and you need some premium to be able to make money. Volatility, however, can be the enemy of a stacker. Let's say you got to sell your stack to pay for a bill. Like, that volatility can kind of hurt you at times. So just like any investment, because the prices are determined by derivative trades, it's not as much your local supply and demand that matters. It's that derivative trade that matters. And so I would say, that's why I kind of say do a mix of gold and silver, because gold tends to be a little bit less volatile than silver. So if you're trading, do the silver. If you're buying and holding, maybe the gold. And maybe that's a way you can reduce your risk. But yeah, it definitely huge trading opportunities for people. And something that we notice when markets get stressed, volatility goes up.
Yeah.
This is true of stock market, real estate market. So I also think, on top of all of that, people should be expecting, in gold quite often, $300, $400, $500 swings in gold, and $5, $10 swings in silver are probably going to become more commonplace. because, as your articles pointed out, some people actually, they just don't want the price exposure. They want the physical. With that COMEX being drained down and it being the largest of the markets in terms of volume, it in the LBMA, it may be harder to get silver.
Yeah.
And and that's certainly bullish for price going forward.
Yeah, I would say 100%. I think what's going on in the COMEX and everything, that's definitely going to affect the larger institutions, right? It's going to affect the traders. And in the short term and the long term, actually more in the long term, it's going to affect physical supply, right? Because you were mentioning before we started recording that even with what's going on in Mexico with the arrest and killing of the head of that, I forget, the new generation cartel, it's creating a lot of violence, instability, and it's definitely going to people think it's going to affect silver supply. Mexico is by far the largest producer of silver. I think they produce more silver than the next 3 countries combined. So if silver production decreases, I mean, that's going to put even a larger squeeze, because in those articles they were talking about how the 400% difference between the paper demand versus physical supply. The reason why it's like that is because the last 5 years we've had a deficit. We've had a deficit on actual demand versus supply, and then right now there isn't enough physical demand, physical supply to meet the registered metal. Right, eligible is non-deliverable, registered is deliverable. And if this gets worse in Mexico, we could even see the supply decreasing even more, which is reverberating into the physical markets. Because when I'm looking at Upstate Coin, Elemental, what is Stel Fox, Golden Eagle Coin, other wholesalers, they're out. And if they're not out of deliverable silver, meaning bullion, they are weeks out, 1-2 weeks out before out of delivery. So I think it's interesting. Do you think Mexico is really going to have an impact on physical delivery and just supply overall?
It definitely could. One thing I wanted to say before I go into Mexico, we are low on inventories because of the mine output not keeping up. We know that from the Silver Institute report, and we know that's not the perfect report, but you can tell, because one of the things on my video tonight, after this video, I have a video on my channel, and one of the things, I went to Gold Charts RS and I looked at deliveries, and there have been more deliveries over the last 5 years than the previous 10 years combined, or 10 or 12 years. And that's because of the deficit. More people are going to these big exchanges to get their silver. So the mine supply output does affect the inventories on the exchanges. Some people, and I've been screaming for about a year, actually about 5 years, but the last year, louder, that these inventories are going to get to the point where we have a real physical squeeze. Like we just can't find it. It's unobtainium. Some people think it's going to happen right now. I think we got a little bit of time left. So the only difference between me and most of the other silver market analysts is I think we've got a little bit more time left, because I've been watching this market for a long time. And man, this thing is like a cockroach. It survives nuclear blasts to supply. I think this time will be the time, but I think we've got a wee bit of time. But you're right. You now add in the cartel violence in Mexico, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Because Mexico is the biggest supplier of silver. It's a huge supplier of gold. It's a huge supplier of a lot of other base metals. They have a huge resource belt that goes from Western Canada all the way down through Mexico into Central America. And in the Mexico portion of that is some of the biggest gold and silver deposits in the world. And it's a huge mining industry. It's a huge part of the Mexican economy, to the point that the president, even being a leftist, threatened to ban open pit mines, and then turn around and change it and said, no, we need the open pit mines. It's too much of our economy, and I need resources. So Mexico needs the gold and silver too, and the other metals. So Mexico is so important, vitally important to resource security here in the West, and specifically to the U.S. It's vitally important. We import a lot. And that cartel violence, if it really spreads and gets nasty and starts shutting down some of these silver mines, or they can't get the silver out because they blocked the port and the road and all that stuff, and the border towns are a mess. I mean, you could see some mines say, well, we're temporarily going to reduce or shutter operations if the Mexican government can't get a hold. For example, it's been reported on Twitter, so I'm just reporting what's been reported, that Vizsla, who has a mine on the West Coast, and I visited that a few years ago with some friends, Paul Harris and David Erfley. Three of their employees got killed, and some others were attacked and or kidnapped, and that Vizsla is reportedly considering what to do about that situation. Now, Vizsla is not a producer yet. They're a huge explorer that has a big resource, but they're trying to get that to market. So that is future ounces in the very near future, probably next 1 to 2 years or whatever, that is being affected. Does that affect current producing mines? All the miners, I know a lot of them. I'm going to go to PDAC in Toronto here tomorrow. I'm flying out. And this is the big mining conference with 30,000 people that descend on the Toronto Convention Center. And I'm going to talk to all the representatives that I can find that own assets in Mexico. And I'm going to ask them, is this scaring you? Is this threatening you? Are you worried about this? Is this a long-term sort of threat to your operations, or is it short-term? And we don't know, but hopefully by this time next week, I've gotten answers, because I'm going to go ask them, because they're all going to be up there. All the mining companies from around the world go, not just the ones in Canada. And I'm going to say, how does this affect the silver trade? How does it affect your project in Mexico? And Daniel, that not only affects silver supplies, it affects the equities market and precious metals, which a lot of our subscribers also participate in. So is it going to affect their mining investments? A lot of our friends, are big into the miners. So we're going to have to see, what happens to that whole industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, Benjamin asked a good question. Is there enough cataloged inventory, such as private holdings, which I think is not registered? That is, what's the other one?
Eligible.
Eligible. So eligible holdings to blunt the effect of supply squeeze long enough to bring on more supplies. I don't know if eligible metals are in play. They're not deliverable. They're just there for contracts, right?
Yeah, there's this is where this is where it gets squirrely, and this is where we don't know where all the ounces are, because you think about the metals, it's a physical component, and it doesn't have to go through the exchange. I could go visit a mine and buy 1,000 ounces of silver and go park it in my garage if I had enough money to fly that, to buy the fly. So not every single ounce gets cataloged, RFID'd, put into a government database, and we can track it. So there's a lot of private trade that goes on outside the COMEX and stuff. And you're right. There's the privately owned silver ineligible on the COMEX, and then there's private silver held off of the exchange that somebody could dump if they wanted. And maybe there's 20 million ounces across the world. Maybe there's 150. We don't know that. So there is like this invisible bucket of silver, but we don't know how empty that bucket is, right? It's the cookie jar that mom hid, and we don't know exists. However, if you do look at eligible, Ronan Manley from Bullion Vault did a really good article about 3 or 4 years ago. He caught a press release from the CME group to the CFTC, I believe, in answer to a CFTC question. The CFTC, as a regular, said, how many, and remember, this happened a few years ago, because why? We were actually lower in available inventories. We're only at 20 million ounces. So when right after the silver squeeze, after we got down about 20, 30 million ounces of free silver in COMEX, the CFTC asked a question, the CME group answered it and publicized this memo. And on their website, and the memo said, we don't know, since they are privately held, how much of the eligible inventories could be liquid to support the exchange in the event that we needed it, because they don't own it. And one thing I want to point out to people, so you understand how the market works, it's really difficult to understand. Yeah, it's just weird the way it's set up. It's not how you would think. The depositories are private depositories. Think Brinks, Malka, Mint, JP Morgan, these companies that own depositories. That depository could be holding gold in an IRA. It could be holding silver for Samsung that's going to use it to build a TV. I mean, inventories there could be for anything, and they happen to be COMEX approved, which means you're within about 150 miles of the exchange, and you meet a lot of stringent requirements in terms of chain of custody, you guarantee the metal's pure, and you have all this financial money to support in case something goes wrong. And there's an insurance fund built out of that. And so the long and short of it is, because of that research done by Ronan Manley and that report, and because we have some private inventories, we don't know. We have no idea. It's not like we could say 10% of eligible is likely to be free, to be unencumbered. And we don't know how many claims are on all of that silver. We don't know how many claims are on the silver in London. We think it's 100 to 1 based on comments from market traders the last few years. So we don't know how much is available. We don't know how much silver is out there. But if you focus on the information available and you look at the exchanges and the runoffs that occur the last 5 years specifically that coincided with the reports from the Silver Institute that we don't have enough mine output, you can kind of put 2 and 2 together and say we're in a shortage. And we don't know the ounces available. And I think that there are probably some, it wouldn't surprise me if there's 100 million ounces of free silver collectively in the world somewhere that you could get a hold of. Now, at what price is somebody going to sell that you're going to pry it out of their hands? And how much is it really? And how quickly could it get to an exchange? If something happens in the economy and every person in America buys 1 ounce of silver, that's 4 times what's in the COMEX vaults. That could bankrupt the entire world. If you add what's in China, London, and COMEX, the 3 major exchanges, if every person in America bought 1 ounce, you could bankrupt the known reserves plus, and we don't know if there's any backup because it's not state-owned, government-owned, and reported on. So that's sort of the mystery around it. But again, when you look at the data, it's obvious there's a run on silver. You just look at the world stores of it and you know there's a run. It's just who may have it if we really need it. And that's why, Daniel, I think this summer the U.S. made it a critical mineral. The U.S. is doing all these deals. They're spending money specifically on silver as well as rare earths. And the U.S. and China place those export restrictions on their silver producers where they have to be licensed so they can control it. And you've seen export tariffs on gold and silver out of places in Asia and the Middle East, which has affected like my ability to get silver for my business. So we had to reroute trade. So a lot of people don't know this, but there are export restrictions and flat blockages of precious metals from traditionally strong markets that have had precious metals for 4,000 to 5,000 years. That what that does is it means if the U.S. has got to go to the Middle East or Asia to get metal, they may not be able to get it this time because the laws are stopping that. Countries are starting to hold on to their precious metals. And then one more fact, you add on the fact that gold is a high quality liquid asset. Some people call it tier 1 in the central banking system, and that the notional volume of that gold holdings is more than all the notional volume of treasuries, which a friend pointed out to me earlier today, that it's clear the world is protecting gold and silver. And that right there tells you there's an issue. We don't know the exact numbers, but we don't need to. You just look at how the players are playing the board. And the players are protecting their assets and they're doing deals and they're flat out stopping exports and they're putting licensure requirements. And you're starting to see reports of where we're running low of silver in particular around the world. So I think if you just add up all the different data points, we're imminently close to some sort of silver event horizon. Now, how that all unfolds, I think is just going to be the fun part of it, because what's going to happen, Daniel, is when it unfolds, we're going to know the truth behind who had the silver and who didn't and how bad it was. And so, for people that like David Morgan have been in this for 30, 40 years and stackers that have been stacking, following me since early 2000s, the aughts, we're finally going to get an answer to who the hell had all the silver, and it's going to happen probably sooner than later. And that's going to be the fun part. It's like the ending of like a 20-hour movie or a TV series has been going for 6 seasons, and you finally get the conclusion. I think we're there in silver. We're very close to the conclusion of who had the silver and who was doing what. And not only that, the lawsuits are going to fly when it's found out that there's less metal than legal claims. It's been oversold. Go back to my Perth Mint series 4 years ago, where we believe we caught the Perth Mint doing that based on analysis of their financials and their inventories, me and Daniel Bagario. So I think that there's going to be scandals that erupt out of it when silver finally gets to the point there's not enough. Once there's not enough, scandal about who sold your silver that you thought was yours.
Yeah.
And I think lawsuits are going to fly like mad. I think that's what's going to happen.
I agree. So to answer Ben's question, no, there isn't enough silver in registered or not registered. What is it? Eligible. There's not enough eligible silver to cover the contracts or supply. Which I think with what you just said, I think it brings up a good question. We interviewed Lynette Zhang. We talked about confiscation of gold and silver, specifically gold. And Tiger Stacker, thank you for following. And also, I wanted to give a shout out quick before we get to this question to Mining Stocks. He just gifted a C4SM membership. Thank you for that, Mining Stocks. So the question from the Tiger Stacker, Rob, if we have a confiscation, I think it will be silver long before gold. What do you think?
It could be because there's such a shortage in silver that there could be. I don't know if they're just going to outright confiscate it and say, hey, turn it in, as much as they could say, hey, if you sell it to us, we'll give you $5 over spot. And they're going to pull it from the market, because what they're trying to do this time, if they do the executive order again, there are too many people who are savvy to what happened in 1933 with the Gold Act and the executive order from the president. They're not going to play that game again. So I think they'll entice it. I think they'll say, hey, silver's critical. We need it. Print a few 50, 100 billion extra dollars, and they're going to go buy it off of people. And I think that you'll probably see the government incentivize people to get rid of their silver. They'll make it patriotic. You're supporting the country. It's kind of like buying war bonds. I think they'll start with that first. And then if they absolutely have to, they will go to depositories that have it and say, eminent domain, here's my IOU. I got to take it and tell your customers we'll get it to you at some point, or maybe we'll buy them out. And I think they'll do that. And I think that they may go to the mines and they may start doing deals. In fact, they've already started doing deals with mines to own the mines in the sovereign wealth fund that Trump has set up, to where they're actually owning gold and silver mines. So the government is in the business of mining. So I think if you add all those things up, the government knows what's coming. It's not just in silver or gold. It's in rare earths. It's in uranium for nuclear energy. It's in things like fluorspar, vanadium. All those things are on the critical mineral resources chart. I think the government is about to buy mines. I think that they're going to encourage sales to the government by offering premiums. And I think they're going to propagandize American people to go into almost like a wartime mode. Conserve, conserve, conserve. Don't use things that you don't need, that use these elements. And they're going to do all that, I think, when it happens.
I agree. Lynette talked about how she thinks there's definitely going to be confiscation of gold and silver. But she said that that the way that they're going to confiscate it is through debasement. Right. So if they do increase the price of gold and silver, let's say they increase the price of silver to $1,000 an ounce to draw in the metals to the government as a strategic metal, same thing with gold. They're not going to do an executive order like you have to turn it in. I think they're going to debase it by debase the dollar by increasing the floor price of gold and silver, encouraging people to sell for dollars, and that's just going to create more inflation, right? They're just going to print dollars to buy all that gold and silver. They're going to confiscate it that way, because a lot of people are going to be like, there's no way I'm going to turn in my gold and silver. But if they entice you, that's a different way of confiscation, right? And that's how they're able to inflate the gold and silver. And as you pointed out, and I think I've been hearing from other people, they're just going to confiscate gold and silver, but buying up the mines, and maybe even using eminent domain, buying the production in the country, or invading a country like Venezuela and taking the resources themselves.
Did they do that with oil? Didn't something happen with oil recently?
Right. So there's definitely, I think there's going to be confiscation, but it's not going to be like executive order in 1933. It's going to be through creative means. And I think that's what we need to be more worried about. That's why you don't turn in your gold and silver. When they increase the price in dollar terms, keep your gold and silver and then use that to trade to buy other assets, because those who keep the gold and silver get the full purchasing power. So I was just looking. We had quite a few comments and questions. Let me see. Here we go. This is probably from Benjamin. Best way to avoid loss of your metal: eliminate third-party risk by holding it yourself and using and spending it. Time to shift into sound money. Agreed. Then the government will reevaluate to a higher price. We were just talking about, like they did in 1933 when they confiscated. Sarah Brown's 5073, metal is too easy to mold into various different things, coins and bullion maybe, but they're never going to take jewelry or flatware, paperweights, chess sets. Exactly. Right. And that's why Elizabeth Taylor always wore her wealth, right? That's another way that you can protect yourself from confiscation. I just put bales in my bar. What? I just put bales on my bars and call them charms. Yeah, there you go. That's smart. And then I agree, they will just entice people to sell, and many people will. Agreed, because most people don't, they don't really think about, what gold and silver really is.
Look at what's going on now. Gold and silver price went up, and in your store, you're taking in a ton of people are selling because I'm telling you, people will sell when the price goes up. When I had my store, it was the same thing. I probably did more business in buying metals, bullion, than I did in selling bullion. And it was taking in scrap or older metals or reselling metals. Some people would bring me their American Silver Eagles. You just resell them. So you just do a difference in premium. And whatever you want to hit there as a dealer, and you got to do your deal with the customer. But most of it wasn't Engelhard bars or Kinesis rounds or American Silver Eagles or Maple Leafs. It was, I'm bringing in my old silverware. I had a girl that was trying to go to nursing school. She was 18, cute as a button. And she said, I don't have enough money. She brought me her necklace. And it was this tiny silver necklace. It wasn't worth anything. I gave her $100 because for her schooling. I just considered it a donation. But I'm telling you, people, when they need to, will sell things of value, and precious metals have value. And if you're the U.S. government, isn't that the easiest way to get people to turn in their jewelry? You know what you do? You finance the We Buy Gold stores. And then you go do a deal with the We Go Buy Gold stores, and you buy it off of them, and you give them a premium. And what is a few extra dollars over spot on that versus the $37 trillion debt we already have? The U.S. government's not going to be shy about. In fact, if I'm the U.S. government, I authorize about $100 billion to go buy as much scrap as I can. And then I go establish a new refiner and say, you just work for us. You refine that into coins and bars, and the U.S. government's going to use it.
I'm telling you, as a coin shop owner, precious metal shop owner, if a refiner was paying, 1-2% over spot, they would eat up the markets, because everybody's buying 99-98% right now on gold, and most refiners aren't paying or taking sterling at all. Right. And if they are taking pure silver, you might get 90-92% a spot. So if the government did buy, let's say, Metal, the biggest refiner in America, and then just pumped currency into Metal and said, hey, dealers, give us your metals, we'll pay you 1-2% over spot. I mean, of course. I mean, they just sell it, buy, and then keep buying from the street. That's kind of the play.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you capture more flies with honey. And the reason they did the confiscation, the gold act back then, is because it kind of had to, that we were on gold as money, not even just the gold standard. Gold had been money. And so it was a different situation in which they had to get people to give up what been money in their family for generations. And it had to be done a different way. Now, I mean, most of the people own gold and silver. The majority of people don't own gold and silver. They're stackers. And if you want to get the coins and bars, isn't it easier just to pay a premium? If you want to get people scrap, isn't it easier just to pay a premium? And I will tell you, if you look at the economy right now, the bottom about 80% of people are really suffering. It is very difficult to make a living nowadays. And I have some friends that run pawn shops, and they're saying their business is booming, in that people are bringing everything, old tools. People are trying to pay bills, man. And I'm telling you, if you're the government,
firsthand, we were talking about it before the show. Like, we're buying a lot of scrap jewelry. We're buying a lot of scrap gold. Actually, a lot more gold than silver. We're buying silver too. But people are bringing in their old high school rings. Their parents passed away, their jewelry, their parents' coin collections. But we're buying a lot of scrap. And I'm noticing, I'm like, why are the bullion, like the tubes of coins, shrinking in our safe, but we're just keep putting out dollars? It's because it's all going into gold. Gold is very dense, and it's gold jewelry. We're buying a lot of scrap from people, and it's like people were just bringing literally a little gold link from a chain, for $40. Like they're just finding anything to survive, because I've said this when I've testified in Florida and around the country, that 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck with not $1,000 to their name. So now they're just bringing anything they can that has value, gold, silver, jewelry. And people are buying bullion, bringing in bullion. We're buying that too, gold coins, silver coins. But it's people that need money are bringing in their jewelry, or turning in their like I had a couple of people come in, they were turning in some family heirlooms, and it's because they had to. They didn't want to, but they needed money to pay their bills. And like it's sad. It really is sad to see people doing that, giving up precious family heirlooms. But it's the reality that we're in, and we're in tough times economically.
Yeah, we are. And other things to think about. We had a GDP. One thing that I said on your program months ago, and I've said to my subscribers, is one of the things I always look at is macroeconomics. And GDP came in at 1.4% in Q4. That's an anemic number. It's way below expectations. It's basically almost zero. And when you consider inflation's higher than what government reports, I could make the case that it's actually shrinkage if you look at Shadow Stats and John Williams. But even if we just use the government number, the economy is limping along a bit right now, and the Fed is talking about lowering interest rates and easing, and Trump is basically begging them to do it and trying to get rid of Powell. So I think the administration knows that the economy is declining. The Fed definitely knows the economy is declining. If you want the best statistics on the economy, go to the Fed. They watch it all. They know. And the defensiveness of the geopolitical positioning around the world, and I'm not going to get into specific conflicts, but if you look at how the world is positioning geopolitically, you can tell that the people are protecting resources, and there's a lot of worry about the economy. The leaders of Europe are worried they're about to go into a depression, and they're having public meetings about it.
Oh, the
economies of the world are not great right now. They're just not.
Look, the yield curve, I forget what it is. Is it the 2 to 10 year yield curve? When that turns, it's officially we're in a recession. That happened mid last year, like in August, September. The 2 to 10 year yield curve flipped, and confirming that we're in a recession. It's just they're pumping so much currency, trying to do a soft landing so we don't feel the impact that it's prolonging that crash or that depression, that recession. But we have been confirmed through multiple data points that we are in a recession, and I think it's definitely a global recession. And I think that there is a strong correlation between, hey, they're having these meetings, and then all the central banks are buying the gold, right? So I do want to get a couple of comments here. Tiger Stacker said, I agree that my silver and gold needs to be in a boating accident, but no one will rent me a boat with a hole in it. I can't figure out why. Someone help me, please.
The famous boating accident. I have no medals. I took it out on my fishing boat and I lost it. That we may be entering those times where you don't want anybody to know that you have anything. And be careful. I'm going to say this. If you want to keep it home, fine. Don't tell anybody. But be careful how much you keep at home and where, because you don't want somebody breaking in and taking your stack. It's happened before. Just be like super careful with where you put it. And it's good to be an enthusiast, but at this point in time, I think people need to get smart about, I want to bring so many people in to sound money, but at the same time, I don't want to tell people I have 1,000 ounces of gold in my garage safe, right? So balance out your enthusiasm and just protect yourself, because as Lynette said, and she was on the show your show recently, and she's a big supporter of C1M. She said many times that when the stuff hits the fan, a few ounces of gold might buy you a city block. And what's going to happen to silver if we run into a real shortage? So what you have now that you might have bought at $15 an ounce may be worth the equivalent of $2,000-$3,000 an ounce, and the gold that you bought at $1,100 an ounce might be the equivalent of $50,000. I mean, we don't know. So whatever you have is going to amplify, and you just be careful and don't let people know that, because if a 1 ounce gold coin, if somebody thinks if it's worth $50,000 in stuff, I mean, they may just rob you for it. So that's the other thing. Just be careful with telling people what you got.
Yeah, don't tell anybody you have it at your house. Say that you have it it's in the lake somewhere, or it's in a safe deposit box or something. Don't ever tell them, dude. Before I had my shop, I can count on one hand, maybe 2, 6 digits, how many people knew where I lived for like 2 years. I didn't want anybody knowing where I lived. I don't even have my address on my driver's license. That's how secretive I was, right? Yeah. So you definitely don't want to tell people where you live, where you have your metals, and so forth. And there are a lot of nights where I would meet with before I had the coin shop. I just sell gold and silver. I would take multiple routes to make sure nobody was following me. I didn't want anybody knowing where I lived. Enough is enough. I can't tell you, that when is that refinery coming online? I can't tell anybody that yet. So, but there is a refinery coming online. Art Regal, great show, guys. Always willing to help people get the best price for their assets. Thank you, Art. He's a customer and a fan. Enough. Watch railroads. Last industry to see a booming economy and the first to see a tanking economy.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Yeah, actually, I haven't thought about that. Sarah Brown has a question. How do you control international trade so you can force the use of your currency, control the shipping lanes? Oh, she answered her own question.
That's correct. And that's why the U.S. has the biggest blue water navy. The question that people are now asking, can the U.S. patrol the whole world and keep it together? And how are the Europeans and the Middle Easterns and the Asians going to help out? And it may be that people have relied on the U.S. for so long that even with this massive navy, they're not going to be able to hold the world together. Yeah. So that's one of the risks is the U.S. can secure certain amounts of shipping lanes, but even we don't have enough boats and planes to secure them all. So it could be that certain shipping lanes get closed, Strait of Hormuz, others, the big Panama kerfluffle. Earlier this year, I was in Panama. And when I was in Panama City, right next to the Panama Canal, Trump was basically raging over China's involvement in that and trying to get it back.
Yep.
Yeah. So shipping lanes are huge, and we have to protect a bunch of them. And I don't know if the U.S. Navy has enough resources. Maybe there are questions on that. We don't know.
Yeah, we have the biggest navy, and now if it was our navy versus the whole world, it'd be a pretty even. I think the whole world combined might have a bigger navy than the U.S. military, but it takes the entire coordination of the rest of the planet to keep up with the navy. And Sarah Brown kind of hinted that. She answered it. The East Indian Trading Company, still, they just call it the U.S. Navy. That's how you control the shipping lanes. But it's. I want to transition quickly from the topic that we've been on. We've been talking about silver and gold, but I'm excited about a change in your life and in my life too. You recently, so Citizens for Sound Money, we chartered an organization for the industry to represent itself and creating standards for the industry and also lobbying for itself, because we noticed over the last 3 years that the gold and silver industry has been underrepresented. I have been the interim executive director until we found a actual executive director. And Rob Kientz, you have recently been voted on by the board of the Sound Money Trade Association to take the mantle of interim, put it on your cap as the actual executive director of the Sound Money Trade Association. So congratulations, my man. Thank you for doing that. And we're looking forward to growing the trade association. What are your thoughts? You want to share with people what's going on?
I'm super excited, and thank you guys for considering me. I hope that my experience and connections can help the trade association get its footing. We're really in the early stages, and why this is super important is if you look at the legislation around removing sales tax, the one that we're going to have to fight at the federal level with capital gains on gold, which needs to be addressed, legal tender laws, keeping the government out of our markets. but also supporting all the things that a lot of businesses in the space need to operate and provide a market, because you need infrastructure. We've never had that representation in the United States in this industry really in any meaningful way, certainly not with a true nonprofit trade association. So the fact that I believe this might have been your idea originally, Daniel, quite some time ago, when I was on the board and we talked about it, and you guys have done just a tremendous amount of work to get this stood up. And we're super excited. We've got companies already joining as founding members. And there are some pretty big hitters in the space that you guys would all know when we're ready to announce it. And we've been blessed. And I've been blessed to come into a position where it's already got, we've already got some participants. But what we need to do is we need to get the word out. We need to talk to people and build this association up so that we can do the things like lobbying for legislation, letting the government know how important it is. It's a way to enhance industry image. And I would say in the long term, it gives us the most powerful single voice against CBDCs and government digital controlled money. And it gives us an opportunity for Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution and sound money to actually take root in America. And so I think the trade association is going to be great. Yeah. And like I said, I'm just flattered to be a part of it. And I hope that, all the experience and connections I have will help, but 100%. We definitely need your guys' help. You guys that are out there, please, there are ways to donate to C4SM. Daniel has those to help the mission. But you can tell, Daniel, that from when Jim and Reno and Marion started this years ago to now, C4SM has made huge strides. You were testifying in Florida and in Missouri, and we've got legislation passed. We now have a full trade association. We have an educational nonprofit that will be coming online soon that people will be excited about, and getting the word out over various media to people. And so all the collective efforts of all the people to build C4SM, now we've got this really great organization that has really all the parts we need. We finally got all the parts we need to support the gold and silver industry. We're doing it at a nonprofit level to serve the people. And we hope that this will build the strength of the industry as a voice in finance, so we can get people investing in gold and silver again and owning some gold and silver, and hopefully maintain, our purchasing power. And when the stuff does finally hit the fan, that we have built the infrastructure to allow people to be able to get gold and silver, to exchange it within product classes and use it so that we can actually maintain some sort of economy. Because when the dollar finally breaks down and the treasury system finally breaks down, we need an alternative. And I think the trade association is a huge piece in elevating the voice of the industry itself so that it can grow and have the resources it needs. So I'm super excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, no. And when we were thinking about who would be good for this position, and I'm like, how about Rob? Like, Rob has like all the connections and he knows everybody, and he's been lobbying with us. He's done everything that we needed to do in the trade association with C4SM when he was on the board. I'm like, would he do it? I mean, we had to ask you, like, are you open to it? And you're like, you know what? I don't know. Let me find out and check. And, we thought about it. We've been discussing it for a little over a month. And I think we came to a decision, and you're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get you on, man. And, you were mentioning it was not just my idea. I met with Larry Hilton from the UPMA and Alpine Gold. He was on vacation with his family at NASA, and we were sitting in the room where the big Saturn V was in the cafe, and we were just talking about how do we bring the industry together. And we both kind of talked about like this Bretton Woods system where we create a global monetary system where sound money in all the industry. And that's where the idea, just thinking about space, sitting at a cafe, and we're like, how do we do this? And that was the birth child. So it was kind of like his idea and my idea combined. We started meeting in November of 2024. That's when the whole idea started, and we started meeting. We've been meeting for over a year now to get the trade association going. And finally, it's great to see just an idea turn into something real. And we're about to make a real impact around the world and around the industry, because it's not just U.S. companies, it's the whole industry nationwide. So we're looking forward to it, man. And you just took something off my plate because I was the interim executive director. I'm like, I got too many.
You were running about 20 different things, Daniel.
I know. So thank you so much. All right, man. So, well, we're almost there. We're at the end. Let me just go over the last couple comments. You can just thank the demon bankers for this. It's sad. Yeah, no, 100%. Get ready now to help others adjust to real money. That is the mission, promoting the use of sound money, protecting people's rights to do so. And now that we have the industry, it's awesome. Thank the demon bankers and the politicians. It's really sad that I lost my silver in a boating accident. Nothing but push forward. With BRICS nation trading for things like oil and gold, do you think gold will be the next reserve currency? Yeah, it's already.
I think it is now in effect for two reasons. It's the highest value of the tier one assets in the central banking system. And if you look at the way gold is separated from other commodity prices, essentially you're pricing every commodity in gold now. Gold is now the dominant commodity in terms of its gain, its launch. So officially in central bank circles and unofficially in commodity circles, gold's the boss right now. And everybody's paying attention to gold. I was just testifying in front of the Georgia Senate today. And man, you know the difference in that? I was sitting there talking gold and silver, and these guys, you could tell had already been talking about it. It wasn't like gold, silver. It was like, oh yeah, gold and silver. Other states are doing that. And I hear gold's a tier one asset. These are coming from Congress people. And it's like, okay, now they're hearing about gold. So now you're starting to see some momentum.
That's awesome.
With the importance of gold. And that's important because if you don't have any, you're in trouble. You know, so we need all the states and to recognize that. And it'd be great if we could get our freaking central bank to buy some again.
That's how did I go? Because Kim Coleman, she's the chairwoman of the trade association. She messaged me. I was in the middle of a grading course. I'm like, I can't testify. I was like, I got an hour. We need to testify. So you actually went in to testify. That's awesome. How did it go?
I went to testify. Ben from C4SM was there. We like the bill. There's some things that need to be amended, but overall, the conversation is so much easier, Daniel. When I went down to Florida with you, and you'd already been there a year. Okay, so remember that Daniel's there for a year and a half before I get there, and when I get there, it's like tense. We're like trying to get the bill across, and people say, "Well, it's already in the Constitution," but the other laws and infrastructure around finance have sort of cordoned gold off as an asset, not as money. So you got to kind of bring it back and assert states and people's rights. And it gets nuanced. And it was hard lifting in Missouri and Florida. Hard lifting. Mm-hmm. I mean, what Patrick did in Missouri was nothing short of, I don't think he did anything else but eat, sleep, and breathe passing gold legislation. And they finally got it across. But now you go to these states and they've all heard about it. Yeah. They've all been like, oh, yeah, I heard about Texas passing gold is tender, Florida. And that's what we thought would happen. And we were talking a couple of years ago and we used to do our spaces programs. You remember on Twitter? I remember. And we were like, if we can just get one of the big dogs. And we've got a couple of the big dogs. And now everybody knows. They know
two dominoes.
Gold legislation.
What was our show called? The Rob and Dan show on X. We were talking about if we can just get Florida or Texas, we got both of them. The rest of the dominoes are going to drop. That's exactly what's happening. We have over 110 sound money bills in play this legislative session. I mean, and it's happening. What we thought was going to happen happened, and it's great. Now it's just there's so many bills, and we have to go out there and try to tweak a few. Well, there's a lot of them that have some bad provisions in them, but we're hammering them out. You know, we're hammering them down, and you know, we have a new tracking system, which has been phenomenal. It gives us updates. It records the hearings live and everything. So it's a lot easier this year for us to track all the legislation. When before it was like we had to go online and see what everybody's doing. Now it's just we get all this information about all the bills. That's how we knew about the hearing in Georgia and in Maryland and Florida and everything. So that's awesome, man. Well, any last thoughts or any last words before we end the broadcast?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody that's watching the program and appreciate people for supporting C4SM. You know, when you get involved in a nonprofit like this, it's not always the sexiest thing. It's not the sexiest TV show, but it's vitally important. And there are a ton of people out in America that have really been supporting us. When I travel and I talk to people and they say, hey, thank you for standing up for gold as legal tender. Thank you for the work of C4SM. People are starting to recognize what C4SM is doing. And I'll be honest, we've done a very poor job of promoting C4SM. We've just been so focused on the mission that we haven't gone out and promoted promoted our mission enough to people, and we're changing that. We're got a bunch of big promotions coming up, but it was about the principle of gold and silver as legal tender and all of its forms, so that we could maintain the privilege of the wealth that we have built in America over these generations, the privileges that our parents had in growing up in a free society and having the ability to self-determine their path. And in order for us to maintain all the freedoms that we have in our Constitution that we built up over these 250 years, because it's 250-year anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Congrats, America, for making it this far. But we're only in the beginning. The next 250 years, we have to fight. And gold and silver is just such a huge part of that. And while this started off as a couple of people in their garage, like every organization does, it's grown. The influence has grown, and it's been done mostly without a lot of promotional help. And I would just say that what we now ask of you is to go out and talk about it and refer people to the website and try to get some grassroots support, so that as we come to your state with the legal tender laws or the capital gains or the sales tax, or just advocating for these industries to be able to operate and even supply the states with bullion to help them with their budgets, all the things that we're doing, and to promote freer markets and better product quality for you guys that are stacking, to remove a lot of these taxes, to facilitate gold and silver as an actual monetary unit. I'd just love for you guys to talk about it with your neighbors and write emails to your state legislators, so that when we come, they're ready to have the conversation. And we're starting to see that, and we appreciate your guys' help, and everybody for joining the channel and supporting it. And of course, it's been my honor the last couple of years to be a part of this. It's, I grew up as a relatively poor kid in Irving, Texas, right? Didn't know how I was going to make any sort of impact on life. And I was blessed to have a beautiful family. And now I'm blessed to have a nonprofit organization that, aligns with my goals and allows me to contribute in this way. And hopefully everything that we're doing will kind of give us that way, that roadmap of being able to survive what we know is going to be a nasty recession. But maybe this is getting us back to our principles of sound money in the United States, and maybe getting us back to that trajectory we want, to where we can enjoy those freedoms. That's really what this is all about. So anyway, I'm super excited about it. I'm going to work very hard, and I've just been privileged to watch C4SIM grow. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been an awesome ride, man. And especially when you joined the board, after Jim passed, we get our footing and look at where we are now. Jim would be very proud of what we've been able to accomplish with Citizens for Sound Money, the Sound Money movement, and now the Sound Money Trade Association. Well, Rob, thank you so much, man, for coming on the channel. And everybody, thank you all for watching. We'll have another live broadcast next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be interviewing Patrick Kareem, one of the best analysts, in my opinion, on gold and silver this Friday. So make sure you catch that at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great night, and we'll catch you on the next Sound Money Matters. Later.